Welcome, everyone, to Season 5, Episode 10 of the Hall of Fame show. And I'm Kirk Buchner, along with Evan Nolan. And we run NotInHallOfFame.com. And that's also my dog in the back. He's got a lot to say. Also, the United States Athletics Hall of Fame, which, Evan, we're going to be opening up with some big news on that today.
We are indeed. So just so you guys know, we didn't do anything last week for two reasons. One, there wasn't that much going on. But two, we have been busy beavers trying to get everything out here. I've mailed a whole bunch of ballots out. The emails have gone out. The mailed ballots have gone out to our nominating committee and some people who don't quite yet realize that they're possibly on the nominating committee because we're trying to get most folks in. So those are going to go out, and hopefully we'll have everything back by the 31st of the month. It's currently May 8th as we speak. The Bruins just lost 6-1 to the Florida Panthers. So, we got that going for us, I guess. But what I thought we'd do today is give you guys an update as to who they are going to be voting on, right? So just it's for where we're standing here. Last year we had 140 nominees. We had our original committee. Everyone put out 25 names. It was 100 names, right? No, I think it was 100, and at least 15 of them had to be women originally because we're coming up with our first official list, right? So we had 25 that got elected, and we have the remaining 115 left over. So now what we've done, and by we, I mean the committee of me, basically, I've gone back over the ones who didn't quite make our cut last year. I added them in, and then we added in people who have been born in 1971, 72, and 73, as well as other people we just missed along the way. So we have 125 names going on these ballots for people to vote on, and hopefully that stuff starts coming back here shortly. So what I thought we'd do is go through who sport by sport as to who is actually on the ballot and who may be joining them.
Okay, go ahead.
Any impressions you have, Kirk, of the people who are on the ballot or who are going to be coming? You and I get one vote as well,
right?
As members of this committee. And our hope has always been that we're the least qualified people to be on this committee. So
it's getting there.
Yeah. I've shown the ballot to a few people like, oh man, I'll totally vote. I'm like, yeah, no. You're not important enough. You're no better than I am.
Right.
So, right. So let's start with, I'll just go alphabetically by sport. So first time, someone who can be voted for, the first person we've had under consideration for archery is Daryl Pace. So Daryl Pace is one of the 125 who can be voted for. A lot of these smaller sports can be interesting to see who, if anyone, gets in. If the most interesting thing I think of our original list is a sport that did way better than anticipated, even though nobody got in for it, was speed skating.
Oh, I was thinking triathlon.
Well, triathlon did well too, but speed skating had they were real close to getting in. They didn't, but they were within 10 or 15 people. So it'll be interesting with some of these smaller sports. For auto racing, we had 4 people on the ballot originally. All 4 still here. That's AJ Foyt, Dale Earnhardt, Mario Andretti, and Richard Petty. Now we have added 8 possible people. So we have Janet Guthrie. Yep. So these are ones that can be voted for. We have 2 women, Janet Guthrie, and was apparently fastest woman on wheels, Shirley Muldowney. We also have David Pearson, Bobby Allison, both from NASCAR. Al Unser Sr., better known for his IndyCar stuff. John Force, the drag racer, and our 2 first-time eligibles also from NASCAR, Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon. Pretty good group of people there.
Yeah, Jeff Gordon, it'll be pretty hard for me not to include him on my ballot. I'm really torn. I've been putting a lot of effort into trying to do this, and I keep thinking, do I want to go more non-traditional just to mix things up? I might be. I haven't decided. But.
Yeah. So we'll see. Speaking of pretty traditional, that brings us to baseball. We had a bunch of baseball people who got elected. Lou Gehrig was elected. Babe Ruth.
Hank Aaron, Willie
Uh,
Mays, Roberto
yeah,
Clemente.
Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Ted Williams, whole bunch of folks. So, but left over even after that, we had Barry Bonds, Bob Gibson, Cy Young, Honus Wagner, Josh Gibson, Mickey Mantle, Nolan Ryan, Pete Rose, Ricky Henderson, Rogers Hornsby, Sandy Koufax, Satchel Paige, Stan Musial, Ty Cobb, and Walter Johnson. My system alphabetized them by first name because you're wondering why they came out in that order. But the ones who we're adding as people who could be voted on to the ballot, this is almost as impressive a group, honestly. Tony Gwynn, Frank Robinson, Bob Feller, Christy Mathewson, Yogi Berra, Roger Clemens, Eddie Collins, who's actually the oldest person people can vote for on our committee, Grover Cleveland Alexander, Tom Seaver, Greg Maddox, Mel Ott, Mike Schmidt, Ken Griffey Jr., Warren Spahn, Jimmy Fox, and Johnny Bench. That is a murderer's row of people who haven't even made the ballot
Right.
yet. Interestingly, I was going through this, and I tried to do this by war, by the way. So there's some people like Cal Ripken who are not even on this, haven't even gotten to the nominees stage yet. So I'm also trying not to just do all the major sports here because we want to get more and more people in.
Right.
For basketball, we had Larry Bird, we had Michael Jordan, we had Magic Johnson, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a few other folks like that all got in. So, but we had 4 people left over. They were Jerry West, Julius Erving, Oscar Robertson, and Cynthia Cooper.
Yeah,
We're adding a whole
Cooper
bunch
did
of people.
very, very well. I mean, I thought she'd be
did.
in the lower tier, like the lower 10, and she was in the top 50.
Yeah, she did very well. And we have some other very impressive women on this list as well, led by Cheryl Miller, Reggie's sister. Reggie's actually on this part of the list as well. Teresa Edwards, Dawn Staley, who's now probably almost as well known for her coaching career, probably as her basketball career. And then we have 3 first-time eligibles on the ladies' side: Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, and Rebecca Lobo, who's actually the youngest person on the ballot that people can vote for. And then everybody else from the NBA, mostly, David Robinson, Elgin Baylor, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Artis Gilmore, Moses Malone, Charles Barkley, John Havlicek, already mentioned Reggie Miller, Bob Cousy, Patrick Ewing, George Mikan, and one I want to take a little time on, Hakeem Olajuwon. Olajuwon, as you know, not a native-born American, but he, like Joel Embiid right now, is going to compete for the United States in the upcoming Olympics, despite the fact he told France he was going to pay for them, which Frederick Weiss was very upset about. You know, Frederick Weiss, the guy who Vince Carter dunked over a few years ago.
Oh yeah. He still knows what Vincentity's balls feel like, scraped right over the top of his head.
It's a feeling most of us will hopefully never have. But Olajuwon, like Mario Andretti, who's also not born in the United States, became U.S. citizens and competed under the American flag. So that makes him eligible.
Yeah, and we did have someone last year who did get in under that parameter, and Martina Navratilova.
Martina Navratilova, that's correct. For billiards, we still have Willie Mosconi, who I believe finished last in our balloting as the only billiards
last or second to last. I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was last.
Yeah.
We still have one bowler in Earl Anthony. Boxing, we had a few people come in. Muhammad Ali, of course. And actually, the first person to miss was Mike Tyson. Finished 26th in our list last year. But we have, along with Tyson, we have Henry Armstrong, Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, Rocky Marciano, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Sugar Ray Robinson returning. We have a whole bunch of other boxers for people to vote for. Joe Frazier, Evander Holyfield, Cornell Whitaker, Roy Jones Jr., Willie Pep, George Foreman, Bernard Hopkins, Eddie Egan, and 2 first-time eligibles, Sugar Shane Mosley and Oscar De La Hoya, who I think is going to be a serious candidate to make our list.
I think Roy Jones Jr. also. Probably maybe higher. Oscar De La Hoya, kind of, there's a contingent. I don't know in our group. I don't ever remember talking boxing with any of them. even with yourself for that matter. We don't talk combat sports too much, but
Not
I
my
know
thing.
Oscar is not exactly liked in some circles. Uh, quick thought. So Mike Tyson is an underdog, believe it or not, against Jake Paul. If
Well,
Mike
Mike
Tyson
Tyson is what,
loses,
54 years old? 53, 54?
something like that, he's in his mid 50s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike Tyson gets knocked out by Jake Paul. That could cost him a few votes or two.
Yeah, it's probably true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Mike
But yeah,
Tyson
I like
crap out of that asshole. Then
we're all hoping for that. But
I,
looking at this list again, depending on how people go, I feel like we could add even 3 or 4 of these boxers to the overall ballot. And it wouldn't surprise me if out of our 25, we have as many as 5 boxers who make the Hall this year.
yeah.
So,
Well, I'll tell you right now, 25 Roy Jones is going to be one of them.
it's very possible.
For
It's
me,
very possible.
that he will get one of
Yeah,
my
I got it.
for what it's worth.
Yep, I got it. We added a new sport, our first bull rider, Lane Frost, who died unfortunately in an event back in the 80s, one of the best bull riders in the history of the sport.
Played by Luke Perry in a movie, I believe.
That may be true. He's a very handsome man, so it makes sense. But yeah, Lane Frost is our first bull rider under consideration. He has to get voted in, but he is here. Cycling, we still only have Greg LeMond. I was tempted to put Lance Armstrong on here, but decided against it. There are a couple of people who I have not put on here.
He could.
If there's a big push for it on the app, what?
It's conceivable. There's an open for an open vote.
Yeah, there is some spaces at the bottom for anyone people think I thought left. I will also say the late O.J. Simpson is not somebody I've included on this at the moment. But if people really feel like he should be there, again, I'm just trying to get this right the best I can. So we've added no one from cycling. LeMond is still the only person there. For diving, the only person coming back is Greg Louganis. We're adding Pat McCormick as someone who is voted can be voted on by the nominating committee. So our first female diver is showing up in this system. For figure skating, we have Dick Button, Dorothy Hamill, Peggy Fleming, and Scott Hamilton returning. Scott Hamilton, of course, the pride of Bowling Green, Ohio, where my wife went to college, and there's Scott Hamilton stuff all over the place. But we have one more male figure skater in Brian Boitano.
What would he do?
Who's coming up here? It's a good question. I don't know if he'll make the top 25, but we'll see. And then we have 4 female figure skaters: Janet Lynn, Tenley Albright, Nancy Kerrigan, and first time eligible, I think probably the best chance of these 5 to get on the list, Christy Yamaguchi.
I agree with that.
Just by the way, as part of this, people vote for 25. At least 4 of them have to be women. I don't think it's going to be hard for people to come up with 4 women to vote for in any way, shape, or form. We get done with this list. Next up is football. We only had 2 football players, right?
Yeah, wasn't that a big shock last year?
Yeah, it's Joe Montana and
Jim Brown.
Who was the other one? Yeah, Jim Brown. That's right. And Jim Brown technically our only lacrosse person. I don't have any lacrosse people on this list either. But left over, Barry Sanders, Bo Jackson, Dan Marino, Deion Sanders, Dick Butkus, Don Hudson, Emmett Smith, George Blanda, Jerry Rice, Mean Joe Green, Johnny Unitas, Lawrence Taylor, Otto Graham, Red Grange, Reggie White, Sammy Baugh, and Walter Payton. That's some pretty good athletes right there. Possibly being added to them, we have no first-time eligibles, but the late Gene Upshaw, Brett Favre, Earl Campbell, Ronnie Lott, Gale Sayers, Dick Night Train Lane, Fran Tarkenton, Bruce Smith, John Elway, Anthony Munoz, and Otto Graham.
Look at that list, right? I mean, like, again, these are people, with the exception of Favre, who wasn't eligible the first time we set this up. That's just insane.
No, Favre was eligible the first time we set this up. He ended up votes to get on the list. He was eligible.
Oh, was he? Okay. All right.
Well, he didn't have enough votes. He was one of the first cuts, or last people not to get on the list last time.
Well, he didn't know who. Well, we're not friends with the governor of Mississippi.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, so that is everybody from football. Golf, we had Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, which is surprising to nobody. Leftover are Ben Hogan, Bobby Jones, and Sam Snead, as well as Kathy Whitworth, Mickey Wright, and Nancy Lopez. Oh, I guess technically Babe Didrikson Zaharias. She was about 17 sports, but she also got in from golf. When she died, she was still the #1 female golfer in the world. So added to this list, we have Phil Mickelson, who also was a close cut last time, Walter Hagen and Tom Watson, as well as Louise Suggs and Patty Berg from the female side. And first time eligible, David Duval is also on this list.
I think Mickelson's got a shot.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's how these people, Tom Watson may have an outside shot too. Depending on people, a lot of people like Tom Watson. Gymnastics, we still just have Mary Lou Retton. We didn't have anyone else who's really eligible yet. There will be a bunch of them coming up, but just they're not 50 years old, is what that comes to. For hockey,
Simone Biles is still competing.
Yeah, some of them are. Yes, Simone Biles is definitely not 50 years old yet.
No,
she's
but
barely 50.
she'll probably, maybe she'll still be competing. I wouldn't put that past her as a possibility.
Yeah. You missed my joke. I said she's not 50 yet. She's barely 50 inches tall.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So we had 3 left over from hockey. Nobody got elected last time. It's Brett Hull, Chris Chelios, and Mike Madonna. Chelios did the best of the 3 of them. Being added to that, as people can be voted for, Pat LaFontaine, Mike Richter, Mark Howe, Brian Leach, Frank Brimsick, and our first female candidate, Cami Granado, who I think has a better chance of getting on than any of the men.
I agree with that. I completely agree that she's actually one of the better shots for that. Also, again, the first, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, the first female inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. So
that is correct. That I did say, yes.
Yeah. So I think
I will say
an excellent shot for her.
I will say, if I had to pick one of the guys, I'd probably pick Frank Brimsick, who I still think, depending on what you feel about Mike Richter, is probably still the greatest U.S.-born goalie in hockey history, even if he's forgotten in many ways because it's been so long.
The first great one, and actually one of the first great American hockey players, period. Because there wasn't a lot of great ones before 1950. There just wasn't.
Also played without a mask for part of his career. So, that's a little scary to me. Anyway, horse racing. We had 2 last time who stayed, Bill Shoemaker and Eddie Arcaro. Hard to argue with either of them. We're adding John R. Velasquez, who's from Puerto Rico, who is, I believe, Shoemaker retired the #1 winner of all time. Then Arcaro passed him, and I think John Velasquez is 3rd in terms of all-time wins in horse racing. And then we also added Julie Crone, another great jockey, to that list. So Velasquez and Crone are up to be voted for. I didn't add anyone to MMA. There wasn't anyone better than Chuck Liddell or Randy Couture. So they're the only 2 there.
Soon.
Another sport being added for the first time, Jeremy McGrath for motorcycle racing. First time eligible. I'd say the leading edge of the X Games, folks, you're going to start seeing now because this goes to 73. So Jeremy McGrath is one of those you're going to see here. Also a new sport, but from much longer ago, a rower, Paul Costello, maybe the greatest American rower of all time, is up for being voted for. We had 1 sailor before, Dennis Conner. We still have the same sailor. There are others who just missed my cut. We will probably be seeing them in years to come as people can be voted on. We have our first shooter, Carl Osborne, the 3rd oldest person on our list, dominated shooting in the early years of the Olympics. I'm talking 1900, 1904, 1908. One of the greatest Olympians of all time for the United States, but he's the first shooter we have on our list. Another first, and hilariously, none of us voted for him last time. Our first skateboarder, Tony Hawk. I don't know how none of us voted for Tony Hawk, but none of us voted for Tony Hawk. So he is here now.
Well, it was one of those things where we're going to openly tell you when we get things wrong.
Yeah, we got that one wrong, but as a group. But we can fix that this time. I'm not saying Tony's gonna make the top 25, but he's got to be a pretty strong candidate for it.
He will be one of my 25 votes. I think also too, next week I'm going to, because I'm about transparency. I will tell you who I voted for.
Fantastic. I will do the same.
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
everyone's going to know already because I'm going to be sending it to him because
that's true.
He's the official. Our accounting team is Nolan, Nolan, and Nolan. And Soup. And
Sounds
Soup.
good. Hold on. Nolan. Also, it has to let the dog inside. So give me one quick second. He's right here. So. All right. Cool.
Soup is the other mascots for Not in Hall of Fame, along with Jasper and
yes, right. Yes, he has two. I have one. His two weight do not add up to half of my one. So
they're not half a bowl of soup.
Yeah, they're not half. Man, my dog is named Soup, so he's about 80 pounds. He's a big boy. All right, for skiing, we had one person before, Phil Maher, probably the greatest male skier in American history. We have two to be voted for, both women. You could argue number one and 1A and 1B for eligibility. I'd say Michaela Schifrin is still the greatest American skier, regardless of gender, but she's not eligible yet. So Gretchen Fraser and Peekaboo Street. Street is the first time eligible person. Do you remember Peekaboo Street original? Yeah, do you remember her original first name before she changed it?
I did not know this was not her original first name.
Yeah, her parents named her Little Girl Street.
Are you serious?
I am serious. And then Peekaboo is a city in Ohio. I'm sorry, in Idaho. And she took the name from the city in Idaho, near where she went skiing, because Little Girl Street is kind of crazy. So
were her parents like hippies or something?
Definitely. Although I met a little girl yesterday named Ivy Garland. Her last name was Garland, and her parents named her Ivy. I have no idea if she has another sister named Laurel. I was just like, that don't do that to a kid. Going to soccer, we still have no male soccer players as of yet. Michelle Akers, the woman who scored the first goal in U.S. women's soccer history, was the only person on before. She's back. She's joined by three other women: Brandi Chastain, Julie Foudy, and Mia Hamm. It's kind of hard to argue any of those four.
Do you think, because like I wonder if our committee might cancel some of them out.
It's possible. I feel like Hamm is just a step above both Foudy and Chastain, although Chastain has the very memorable celebration.
It is.
Mia Hamm
sure. It's iconic.
Yeah, Mia Hamm was widely considered to be the greatest women's soccer player in the world when she was playing. And by the way, Foudy and Hamm, they're both first-time eligible. Chastain got votes last time, but didn't have enough to get on the ballot.
Yeah. This will be interesting because I know I'm going to be voting for one of the three. I don't know which one. Might be two. I mean, I'm
definitely voting for Hamm. We'll see where Foudy ends up.
Yeah, I mean, it's because just because we've encouraged, well, not encouraged, we've told everyone they have to have at least 4 women on this. Doesn't mean you can't do more.
No, and like I said, there's some we haven't gotten. There's some others. It's going to be very hard for me not to vote for when we get up there. Another new sport that be under consideration: our first softball player can be voted for, Lisa Fernandez, who I actually have a glove out there with the Lisa Fernandez signed signature on there. I have a Kirk Gibson that I used as a kid. I have a Lisa Fernandez, and I have a Nomar Garcia Parra out there. Speaking of Mia Hamm. Lisa Fernandez, by far and away the greatest U.S. softball player of all time. For speed skating, we had Bonnie Blair and Eric Heiden. They are returning. As we said, they both did very well. They're joined by someone else who I think will do very well when he gets on the list. Dan Jansen is eligible. He also ended up just missing last time of getting voted in. They have the opportunity to do something about this time. Another new sport, surfing. Our first surfer, and Kelly Slater. Another hard one to say anything negative about. That's
very strong possibility.
What?
Very strong possibility.
Yeah, he's got a very good chance of making it. We still have just the one synchronized swimmer, Tracy Ruiz, who was left over from last time. No one knew to vote for them. For swimming, Mark Spitz did not make it last time into our hall. So he's still here along with Nat Biondi, and then Dara Torres, Debbie Meyer, and Tracy Calkins. There are a lot of swimmers that we could put on here. So joining them on men's side, we only have two, Norman Ross, and maybe more famous as an actor than his actual swimming, although he's a heck of a swimmer, Johnny Weissmuller is here.
Tarzan.
Yes, that was Tarzan, yep. And then on the women's side, Shirley Babashoff, Angela Martino, and then 4 first-time eligibles. And again, this is where it's going to be hard not to vote for one or more of these people. Janet Evans, Summer Sanders, Jenny Thompson, and Amy Van Dyken. All multiple-time medal winners at the Olympics.
Yeah.
So I think I favor Janet Evans in that group before if I was only voting for one, but I'd have to do a little more research into it.
I was thinking the exact same thing, but I'm not going to commit to it right now because I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I also, Gary Hall Jr. was originally on this list, and then I realized he was born in 1974. So we'll see Gary Hall Jr. next year as a nominee. For tennis, I don't know. Do we have any? I don't think anyone from tennis got on last time, if I remember correctly. Oh, sorry, other Martina. Martina Navratilova. That's correct. So left over on the men's side, we had Arthur Ashe, Bill Tilden, Don Budge, Jimmy Connors, and John McEnroe.
Yeah, look
on the women's side,
those last two were great in itself.
I know. On the women's side, we had Althea Gibson, Billie Jean King, and Chrissy Everett. So adding to them on the men's side, Tony Trabert, Jim Courier, Andre Agassi, and first-time eligible Pete Sampras.
Pete's getting a vote.
That's a tough group to get through. I mean, I feel like Andre Agassi is also going to be pretty close for me as well. On the women's side, we have Helen Willis, the late, great, died much too young, Maureen Connolly, probably the first great American women's tennis player who died at only the age of 32 or 33 back in the 1940s. And another person who was born in another country, became an American citizen, and changed her what country she represented. Monica Seles, who was also a first-time eligible. For track, we had a whole bunch of people left over. We had so many track athletes. Al Order, Bob Beeman, Bob Mathias, Bruce/Caitlyn Jenner, Edwin Moses, Evelyn Ashford, Florence Griffith Joyner, Gail Devers, Jackie Joyner Kersey, Joan Benoit, Michael Johnson, Rayford Johnson, Ray Urey, the one person neither of us had heard of before this process.
Oh, I knew who that was.
Oh, I didn't know who that was. And Wilma Rudolph. We don't, since that was such a strong list, there aren't that many more really to add. But there are a few who needed to be here. On the women's side, we only have Wyoming Attias, who I'm going to be adding onto this list, or someone to be voted for. The other ones, one of them technically could be in 2 sports here. But Jim Ryan was also a member of Congress at one point. Dick Fosbury, of the Fosbury Flop. Both John Carlos and Tommy Smith, famous for 1968 Olympics. And Bullet Bob Hayes is here as a track athlete. He would not be here yet as a football athlete, but he is certainly a 2-sport athlete who excelled at both and is a member of Hall of Fame for both.
Which you can, this is the U.S. Hall, you can combine them. So as far as we're concerned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I sent out, I said that I was combining, I put Ted Williams down for baseball and fly fishing, and I put Jim Brown down for football and lacrosse. So you can absolutely combine.
Jackie Robinson is a hell of a basketball player too.
That's true. Triathlon, we still have just the 2, Dave Scott and Mark Allen. It doesn't make sense to put anyone else up until Dave Scott and Mark Allen are in. Another new sport, volleyball. Karch Corrali is our first volleyball person you can vote for. Next up, weightlifting. John Davis, probably the greatest American weightlifter. One of my favorites that I was the only person who voted for last time, but I felt we needed to have her here. Technically a track athlete, but Jean Driscoll wheelchair racer, the great marathoner who run multiple marathons, Boston several times. If you're going to have a wheelchair racer or someone for the Paralympic side of things, it's hard to beat Gene Driscoll for this list. And then our last sport is wrestling. We had Dan Gable before. He was I believe, the only wrestler on our list. We're going to be adding Bruce Baumgartner and first-time eligible Rulon Gardner.
That makes me feel old knowing that I'm older than him, but that he's already eligible. Because I still remember
Rulon Gardner's here.
The story with what I believe he's the one with the missing toes, no?
Correct. Yeah. From frostbite. So so that is everybody. There are 125 we added to be considered. 25 of those are being voted on. Probably 25 or so will be added, but if there's a tie, or we have somebody who's one vote off, we'll see. It could be 20, it could be 35. It all depends on where there is a good break point. That makes sense. Much like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame did this last year. They had a top 3 that were really close, and then there was a break, and then there was number 4, and then there was a break, and then 5 through 8 were all super close, so let's put all 4 of them in.
Yeah, and just so you know, if we don't get somebody that Evan and I are both super fans of, we're not going to backdoor them in. It's still all
there's no backdooring.
No,
I have
our backdoor is
trouble
closed.
letting you guys know.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Very much. Yeah. So so that's the list of people the people are going to be voting for. Hopefully we will get people getting stuff back, and we'll be adding folks to the list as we go forward. We're excited about this. This is year 2. We decided, like I said, to keep everybody who was there from the first year. At some point, we may revisit that if people were consistently finishing the bottom and put them up to be nominated again. But we're not going to do that yet. There's too much other stuff we're looking at for that. So
yeah, no, for sure. Do we want to look into the people who passed away, or I could just do an elevator if you want?
Do a quick elevator. I've done a lot of talking here recently.
Okay. So elevator up, elevator down, where I look at the past week or 2 weeks, I guess, in this case, and who has made a stronger Hall of Fame case for and who has not.
Elevator up, elevator down.
This might overlap a little bit with the monthly elevator show I do with Chris Meridian, but so be it. Especially if there's more. Sometimes there's just more thought that I go with that. Elevator down, I'm going with someone who's going to get into the Basketball Hall of Fame anyway.
Okay.
Doc Rivers. Got bounced again. And you look at all the talent.
Hey, at least he didn't lose a 3-1 lead this time.
Well, there you go. There's that. But look at all the people that he's coached. He has one title.
Yep.
With a powerful Clippers team, couldn't get him past the second round. With the Sixers,
and to be fair, that 2010 Celtics team who went to Game 7 and held Kobe to 6 for 24 for the first 3 quarters, and then Kobe decided that he was Kobe Bryant, and they ended up winning that in the 4th. And Ron Artest, Meta World Peace, had that ridiculous putback after a stupid rebound. Not that I'm bitter, as a Celtics fan, but I mean, not great on his resume. I will say his son didn't cover himself in glory this week either, with the whole comment that more NBA players could play in the NFL than NFL players in the NBA.
A useless comment that'll never be tested. So,
well, actually, the first ever pro athlete signed as a professional basketball player, or former NFL player, signed a pro basketball contract this week. It was he signed in the Caribbean League. Hold on, I'll think of who it is. I brought it up. I should have remembered who it was.
So while you're looking for that, so I'll just sort of say the pundits were all shaking their heads when Milwaukee signed Doc Rivers, and it was a losing record for the rest of the year. Things just did not go his way. I don't know if the games passed him by or if he was just always overrated.
He just doesn't like using young people, and it makes a big difference. And to be fair to him, They lost, although I don't know if it really would have mattered. I think Indiana was a bad matchup for Milwaukee anyway. But he didn't have Giannis. He didn't have his best player. And his second best player is 35-year-old, slightly injured, and his third best player is 33 years old and injured, and his fourth best player is 36 years old and injured. So I'm not sure this was the greatest team to judge him by. This Bucks team was flying high but not playing any defense. I don't think it was sustainable anyway. So we'll see. But yeah, it wasn't good. And by the way, it's Devin Funchess, the former wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, signed a professional basketball contract earlier this week. So there's at least one NFL player who's playing professional basketball.
Well, there you go.
It's interesting.
Continuing with elevator down, the Suns have imploded. Thankfully, not the Sun, but the Suns themselves.
Yeah, the Sun imploding would be a bigger issue. That'd be more an elevator down. That'd be an elevator no longer existing.
There wouldn't be a show.
We'd find a way.
Well, of course we would. Of course we would.
With our budget, of course we'd find a way.
Well, there you go. It's not Kevin Durant, but I think his narrative is taking a beating. Kevin Durant's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I'll use this word again. He's imploded 2 franchises in a row. Doesn't make anyone around him any better. But the person I've got as an elevator down, the one who handled it the worst is Bradley Beal. Because
Bradley Beal's the most untradeable player in basketball.
He's up there. He's up there. I mean, Bradley Beal had an awful time in Phoenix. Phoenix gave an awful lot to get him, and it goes back to that narrative. And I'm going to flip that on an elevator up soon. So Devin Booker is still young enough that he can turn things around. So I'm not going to tag an elevator on him. And Kevin Durant's already punched his way to the Hall.
Here's a question for you quickly, though.
Sure.
Does Kevin Durant get his number retired by any franchise?
That's a very good question. He doesn't even have the personality where he's liked anywhere.
So he's certainly not getting retired in Phoenix. He's not getting retired with the Nets. So that leaves him with the Thunder and the Warriors. Like the way he left the Warriors, I don't feel like he's getting his number retired there.
I think maybe with OKC, you got a shot at that. And that's where he won his MVP, right?
Yeah. And I mean, in that OKC team, I mean, up until this year, that's the best team they've had.
They were also hindered by poor management. And like, I don't think anyone blamed in OKC at that point when you got rid of James Harden after his 3rd year and he was about to break out. You're shaking your head when you've got him, young Harden, young Westbrook, young KD.
Yeah. And Serge Ibaka and a few other folks who were pretty good. That was a good team.
Right.
That was broken up because they were afraid they wouldn't be able to sign him in 2 years.
Right. So they did that. They did a really stupid move. And I still remember that like right at the end, because Oklahoma City, I think, did they win a game or were they swept? I don't remember. But
in this series, they were swept.
They were swept. Okay. And whoever was commentating, because it was those big 3 of Harden, Westbrook, and Durant. And they're saying, well, and they're looking, they're locked in arms and they're okay, we're going to remember this and we're going to be here again. And they didn't. Because they never played as a threesome again. Say what we want about KD. If I was a fan of the Thunder, I would understand at that point him saying, you took away one of my horsemen.
I get it.
Yeah. So I think if that's going to happen anywhere, it'll be OKC. Saying that, the narrative on him is just awful. I mean, Phoenix, they've got like I think they have 1 pick in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Well, they have multiple that are draft swaps. So they get the worst of someone else's. There's like multiple things. They get the worst pick out of whatever. So I don't know. I mean, if they're going to make any improvements, the person they have to trade is Booker, but they are no good if they trade Booker. So, because they're not going to get anything really for KD at this point. And Bradley Beal, if you get a bucket of balls, you're ahead of the game.
Anyone who trades for Kevin Durant at this point, I mean, you know what you're going to get. And
He's become almost a mercenary at this point.
I don't know.
By the way, how many people do you think retired LeBron's jersey?
Well, 3.
I don't think LA does.
You don't think so?
I think the Heat do, and I think the Cavaliers certainly do. But I don't think LA does. They don't love LeBron
He did win. He did
out
win
there. I
titles.
don't feel. He did win a title.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a title where there was a parade or they saw any of the home games.
This is true. This is true. Well, I mean, Cleveland for sure, Miami for sure, LA maybe, and then maybe he'll set up a deal where he goes to his next team to whoever might be. Come on, draft my kid. I'll go play there.
Yeah.
Which
I hear Charlotte is lovely this time of year. So the funniest place to draft his kid would be Boston because he hates Boston with a passion.
LeBron
It'd be
hates
hilarious
Boston.
if he felt like he had to sign there. Oh, he hates Boston so much.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, part of it has he never liked us before, and then the way we've treated Kyrie in Boston because we all hate Kyrie.
It couldn't be because of other reasons, but anyway.
Well, I mean, he's using the other reasons, but
yeah,
Carmelo Anthony loves Boston, so who knows?
Interesting. So I'm going to switch over to an elevator up, someone who's been a previous elevator down. And it all goes back to the narrative. Minnesota traded a whole lot to get him, 5 first-round picks, and Rudy Gobert turned it all around. He won his third or fourth defensive player of the year.
Fourth.
Okay.
Fourth defensive player of the year.
Fourth defensive player of the year after his first year in Minnesota was god-awful. It looked like he was on his way down. If you would have told me in 2 years after he'd become another decoy, I wouldn't have believed it. Minnesota is playing some excellent basketball as we're recording this. Right now, I think it's your team. Whoever gets out of the West is just not going to be playoff ready or playoff tested against your Celtics. I'm pretty much giving the Celtics the East, but.
Well, I mean, we'll see. Tony Maserati said that the Celtics win the championship, it won't count because they're beating teams by too many points, and therefore it wasn't a challenge.
Is that an actual quote by somebody, and that it wouldn't count in the asterisks?
Yep, the top sports radio guys in Boston, 98.5, the Sports Hub, are Felger and Maz, who are awful. They're awful. They just whatever's good and happy, they just take the other side. And Maz actually said today that if Celtics win the championship, it won't count because they're beating teams by too many points.
So how many of the Bulls championships counted then? By his logic, that is idiotic.
It's not logic. It's not logic. It's what's wrong with sports media. It's a hot take machine where there's absolutely no repercussions for being an idiot. So, unless you have Greg Doyle out of Indianapolis, who got suspended for doing the whole thing with Caitlin Clark. So,
I didn't think he was going to get suspended. But
he's too much of a moron. He's like he does shit like this all the time. He's been doing it.
Okay, I mean, I don't know his track record.
Yeah, Greg. Here's how bad Greg Doyle is. I knew who he was ahead of time. And how many Indianapolis reporters do you think I know? The answer is 2. I know Greg Doyle. I know Bob Kravitz, and Bob Kravitz is the one who suspended him. So Bob Kravitz is one of the voters. Is the voter in the Hall of Fame for the Colts. He's their Colts representative in the Hall of Fame voting. So I know who Bob Kravitz is. Who writes some, I always agreed with him, but he always writes pretty good articles. Greg Doyle just pulls stuff out of his backside constantly. So,
well, I mean, at least it was better than what Antonio Brown said.
Or Pat Beverly.
All right, we'll save that for your ugly, I suppose, if you're going to be doing them. But
well, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. Just if you throw a basketball at somebody and they pass it back to you and then you throw it again, and then you go into the locker room and refuse to talk to one of the most respected reporters in the industry because she doesn't listen to your podcast,
it wasn't even just that. Then he was offended that she was still in the scrum, and he had to.
The whole thing was. It's entirely possible Pat Beverly never plays another NBA game.
I will go on record. He does not play another NBA game again. This
It's
guy
possible.
found himself
I,
too bad.
I think he might. He still have some value. But
There are players with higher value that they won't touch. Dwight Howard comes to mind.
Dwight Howard is definitely a better player. But
Yeah.
Christian Wood is still in the league, so who knows?
Unless they want a mascot, I mean, I don't know what good he is at this point.
That's true.
Dude, you
So,
listen to my podcast.
here, I'll go this far. If he does end up back in the league, he'll end up on the Bulls. That's my call. So, so the Bulls won't trade for him because they haven't made a player trade since 2021.
I've got some more actually on the elevator.
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah. I gotta like slam somebody who might win their second Vezina, and that's my goalie Connor Hellebucyk, who was you can't put it any blunter than this. He was awful. Winnipeg's overall defense was awful, so I will not pin all of those goals on him. But when you are the first goalie in history to allow 5 goals in 5 games in the playoffs, and this wasn't the 80s.
Yeah, it's not good.
You know, a lot of that's on you. And, you know, you talk about an asterisk. Sometimes, not sometimes, I eventually I'm going to get to a project where I want to do like pure titles. You know, like I always think like coach of the year is given out it's really whoever defied expectations. That's who wins coach of the year every year, essentially. But we've seen, I know in Toronto, Sam Mitchell, I think it was, Sam Mitchell, won coach of the year and then got fired right after. It's the playoffs. Yeah. You know, who would be the actual MVP? So I'm sure, like right now, today, as we're recording this, Jokic won his 3rd MVP. Shaq was not happy about that.
Yeah, come on, Shaq.
But let's say
it wasn't even close. The voting wasn't even close, and like he just wins the award and go like, no offense to you, but someone else should have won it. Okay, Kanye West
or Kendrick Perkins
or Kendrick. Yeah, Kendrick Perkins
he's a clown, yeah. But
I'm a Celtics fan. He's
okay, but let's say you sort of like combine everything, regular season and playoffs, and how much do these awards alter?
It'd be interesting. I mean, how does the teammate of the year award in the NBA affect things? That's what I really want to know. Should Al Horford be upset that he finished 3rd in that? Should he feel slighted?
Depends on what his bonus clause was.
I don't think anyone knew it existed when he signed his contract. So, yeah, it's interesting. I will have to say one other massive potential elevator up, and you're saving him. Anthony Edwards for Minnesota has a legitimate shot if he goes through Jokic and he goes through SGA and say he goes through Tatum and Brown in the finals at 22. He has a chance to become the face of the NBA and massive elevator up. Yeah,
I was sort of saving him for another week because I've got. But yeah, I mean that's an excellent one. In hockey, I don't have any other ones per se, but I have one that I just really thought of really today, and it ties in with our last episode where we looked at the Rock Hall. I'm going to throw Drake as an elevator down. Now, I'm a 51-year-old white dude. So my knowledge on rap battles are not necessarily that strong. I'm just here for it, to be entertained. I don't quite know why there's so many rap battles, don't much care. I know though that when you lose one, it's usually not good.
And Suge Knight's usually involved.
I don't think he's involved in this one. But when we talk about shifting narratives and Drake, pedophile. Drake, ghostwriters. Drake, not as talented. And Kendrick Lamar, I think, and pretty much according to the fine people in X would agree with me, they were using the Simpsons thing, stop it, he's already dead. many, many times.
But don't forget that Drake overcame that terrible injury when he got shot in the back in junior high school and was in a wheelchair.
He did. He did.
That's the Degrassi Junior High reference for all of you guys who are didn't have to deal with Canadian television programs invading the United States.
I like his song. I started from the bottom. Now you didn't start from the bottom.
Degrassi Junior High is the worst part of Ontario. So
I'm old enough to remember the original one.
So
Degrassi
all right, should we? You have anything else, or should we move on?
No, that's it there. Because I guess just more to add to that is just the other people piling on him, on Drake. So if those are the ones doing it publicly, who are the ones doing it privately? And then it sort of will have that trickle down effect. And if you don't have your cred,
you don't have anything.
It'll hurt a lot. Especially like who's got a better Hall of Fame case, Drake or Kendrick Lamar? Kendrick Lamar is the more respected rapper by far.
True.
Drake or The Weeknd, who both sort of like have that pop soul sensibility, but The Weeknd is probably more respected than he is. Now, is Drake a mega seller? Sure. Well, what does that necessarily mean? For Mariah Carey, didn't mean shit, did it?
That's true.
Yeah.
And the Monkeys can't even get on the ballot. So,
I guess we'll close.
Anyway,
I guess we'll just close up with the people we lost.
Yeah, because I'd rather do that. I've talked briefly here about the things I want to talk about on the good, bad, ugly, pretty much. So let's do the people we lost, and I want to spend some time on a couple of them. So let's start with the Beige Mistress. She was active on the last couple of weeks here. We said goodbye to both Laszlo Hammerl, who won a gold in the 1964 games in Tokyo in men's shooting. Also won a bronze in Tokyo and a silver in Mexico City. He was 82. And Rudolf Castelli, who competed in 8 events in the 1960 Summer Olympics in gymnastics, passed away at the age of 89. You may say it's old age. I say it's an under-the-cover serial killer that only kills Hungarian athletes.
I'll just apologize ahead of time. With the move in Seattle, I haven't set up everything yet. So if it's getting darker here and it looks like I didn't put a lot of effort, it's because it's getting darker here and I didn't put a lot of effort.
Truth in advertising. I don't usually do this. I don't usually do someone like this, but I'm going to put it out there just because of what happened. But Alexander Pilashenko, who was a gold medalist European Championships in weightlifting in 2016 and 2017, was later banned for doping allegations, although he was appealing them. He was killed in the Ukraine Russia war on the front lines fighting for Ukraine. He died at the age of 30.
Yeah, I read about that.
From the world of acting, there are a few people I thought we should bring up here. First, Jean Luann Epper, basically the 1970s TV show stunt woman. She was a stunt woman for Linda Carter on Wonder Woman, Lindsay Wagner on the Bionic Woman, and Kate Jackson on Charlie's Angels. Also very famous. Did you ever see Romancing the Stone?
I have.
You know the scene where they slide down the mudslide on that hill?
Yeah.
That is Jeannie Epper doing that thing. But she's also in Catch Me If You Can, Minority Report, and Kill Bill Volume 2, among others. Was also once the president of the Stunt Women's Guild. And also had just acting roles in general. Was in Beverly Hills Cop 3, Supernatural, Foxy Brown, and a few others. But she passed away at the age of 83. Also passing away, two people from medieval television programs. Starting with Ian Gelder, best known as Kevin Lannister from Game of Thrones. Passed away at the age of 74. So he had died of bile duct cancer.
Yeah, it sounds awful.
It does not seem fun. He was also the riding instructor in King Ralph, among other things. From also passing away from the other one, the Game of Thrones sort of copied in a weird way. Lord of the Rings, Bernard Hill passed away, best known as Theoden, King of Rohan in Lord of the Rings. Also, Captain Edward Smith in the Titanic. The captain of the Titanic in that movie, Bernard Hill. He passed away at the age of 79. I was in a whole bunch of other movies, True Crime with Clint Eastwood, The Boys from Black Stuff, and a whole bunch of other things. But yeah, he was 79 years old. Okay, coming into other stuff. The greatest women's badminton player of all time, Judy Devlin, remember the Badminton Hall of Fame, passed away at the age of 88, won gold in, she also was from, excuse me, she was born in Winnipeg, Canada, but represented the United States, but she also represented England at one point. So I'm not sure what I would do with this woman in terms of our thing. She represented the United States first and England second, but she's born in Canada. So I'm not exactly sure how that works. But she was won 3 gold medals in the Uber Cup. I can't tell you exactly what that is, and a silver, and then won 2 golds in the European Championships as well. She passed away at the age of 88.
Too bad it was
12.
Then I could say that his shuttlecock really got around, but
that is hers did too. But she won 12 titles in 14 years from 54 to 67 in the women's single event at the US Open. So she won 12 of the 14 in a row, including 8 in a row from 56 to 63. So it's hard to say we've ever had a better badminton player than Judy Devlin. From the world of basketball, Darius Morris passed away, played for the Lakers, Clippers, and Grizzlies, and Nets. He was only 33 years old. He was found dead in his house out in Los Angeles. Also passing away from the world of golf, Peter Oosterhuis, who was from England and died at the age of 75, 4-time Harry Vardon Trophy or European Tour Order of Merit winner, one of the greatest European players ever. Won 17 total championships, won the PGA, 7 on the European Tour.
Also he was excellent in Logan's Run. Oh, that's Peter Ustinov.
He was also a commentator on BGA for many, many years, mostly CBS Sports, from 98 until 2015.
That's where I know that name from mostly. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he had to retire because he had early onset Alzheimer's. From football, we lost Lyle Bauer, 3-time Grey Cup champion in 84, 88, and 90 with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, also their most outstanding lineman and member of the Blue Bomber Hall of Fame. He was 65. American football tight end, as we say, and 1-time Pro Bowler, Aaron Thomas, played with the 49ers and Giants, passed away at the age of 86. Corey Cunningham, who is a offensive lineman with the Cardinals, Patriots, and Giants, played 31 games, passed away at the age of 28. They thought he committed suicide because of CTE. So we'll still see how that happened, what happens with that one. Also passed away, Kevin Hardy, Two-time national champion in college at Notre Dame, including first team All-American, a second team All-American, and third team All-American. Played for the 49ers, Packers, and Chargers. He passed away at the age of 78. And the biggest name I would say in football, everyone else we've lost is in music coming up here. Joe Collier passed away. Two-time All-American, first team All-Big Ten in 1952 at Northwestern. Was also coach for the linebackers coach for the Buffalo Bills and head coach for them for a few years. The defensive back coach for the Broncos and their defensive coordinator during the Orange Crush years. And then eventually the Patriots defensive coordinator during our absolute worst seasons in the history of the franchise. But he passed away at the age of 91. I know that Vinny in particular is a big fan of having a spot in the hall for assistant coaches. Joe Collier would be somebody probably under consideration if that was a thing that existed.
Yeah, although they are doing, a much better job in just sort of like recognizing them. Maybe it's not with a bust, but it's still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shall see. So, yeah, we'll see. But Joe Collier, 91, very, very important in the development of a whole bunch of stuff here. All right. Everyone else we had I'm sorry. There's one more from race cars from car racing, NASCAR series driver Wally Dallenbach Sr. Gave me the wrong Wally Dallenbach. Excuse me. Wally Dallenbach Sr. ran 180 races over 15 years in champ cars, with 5 wins, 27 podiums, and 1 pole. He passed away at the age of 87. So won the California 500, which is his only major in the kart series. Name that pretty much everyone knows. His son, Wally Dallenbach Jr., has been more involved in NASCAR, but Sr. passed away. All right, everyone else, as I said, is with music, including Gary Floyd, who is a punk rock singer of Sister Double Happiness, and probably better known as the lead singer of The Dicks, who are a punk rock group out of Austin, Texas. He passed away at the age of 71. Also passing away, Richard Maloof, who was the leader of Lawrence Welk's band from back in the day. He passed away at the age, played bass and tuba for them, but he passed away at the age of 84. Also passing away, Bill Holman, another jazz guy, worked very, very closely with Stan Kenton, probably best known for being the lead of I'm sorry, the other guy was the lead of the Band of Renown. I'm sorry, Wes Brown, his Band of Renown. Bill Holman worked with Charlie Barnett and basically was worked with everybody. He was one of the he worked with the Wrecking Crew, Fifth Dimension, the Association, the Monkees, the Sandpipers, Burt Bacharach, Tony Bennett, Bobby Darin, 4 Freshmen, Jack and Roy, Eartha Kitt, like Seals and Cross, Peggy Lee, the Turtles, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Mel Torme, like you name anyone from about 1950 through 2020, he was involved with them. Anita O'Day, like it just keeps going on and on, but he was 96 years old. Okay, the last 3 are all pretty big names. Richard Tandy passed away at the age of 76. He was the keyboardist for ELO. Very, very important of their sound, particularly on their, A New World record, Out of the Blue, and Discovery in Time. Also worked with Jeff Lynne on a whole bunch of other projects as well.
Member of the Rock Hall.
Yeah, and remember the Rock Hall. It doesn't say what he passed of, but just a very, very, very important part of the sound of ELO, one of the best known organizations or bands in a long, long time. So, but as I said, he was 76. Also passed away another member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, inducted on his own, but way back in 1994, Dwayne Eddy passed away at the age of 86. Probably best known for Rebel Rouser, Peter Gunn, because they're young. Very big influence on the Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, among others. Just an absolute guitar legend. Yeah, just I don't even know what to tell you what to say about him. I mean, he was incredible.
One of the few that was sort of keeping rock and roll alive in that weird period when Elvis joined the army and before the Beatle invasion. There wasn't a lot of great pure rock in those first few years of the 60s when you look back.
Yeah. So known as the Titan of Twang, guitarists who have said that Dwayne Eddy was a massive influence on the way they played include George Harrison, Dave Davies, John Entwistle, Bruce Springsteen, John Fogerty, Mark Knopfler, and Adrian Belew, among others. And as Mark Knopfler in particular is someone who is widely considered one of the greatest guitarists of all time. So Dwayne Eddy died of cancer at the age of 86, 4 days after his birthday. And last one I would talk about, and last thing we can close with tonight, one of the behind the scenes people in many ways, although he was very involved on stage with music as well, but one of the people who's most responsible for the shaping of music, I'd say, over the last 30 years, particularly here in Chicago, but just in general. Steve Albini passed away of a heart attack yesterday at the age of 61. And you're like, who the heck is Steve Albini if you're not necessarily aware of him? He worked on several thousand albums over his career. I sent you an obituary from Rolling Stone where they named his 17 essential albums. How many people do you need to narrow down to just their top 17 albums? Probably someone, if the Ahmet Ertegun Award was designed for, if they hadn't done such a bad job and are still putting people in for Motown and had gotten further ahead, Albini is one of those people who you would be looking at here. He was involved with Big Black and Shellac, among others, on stage, but he worked with, Nirvana on the In Utero album, the Breeders, PJ Harvey, the Jesus Lizard, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page. But the one that I'm going to remember him most for is actually the one he did, and probably in my opinion, his most important album he did, was the one he did with the Pixies. Yeah. So Surfer Rosa by the Pixies, which is, I don't want to overstate this. I think Surfer Rosa is the birth of alternative music in terms of the 90s alternative view. Surfer Rosa came out in 1988. It has Where Is My Mind is probably the biggest hit off of it. But the way that Surfer Rosa paved the way for so many other bands to go with this. But he's he's responsible for so much music that you don't quite realize he did. Like I said, he did In Utero with Nirvana. The thing about In Utero is almost all of those songs on that album is first take. Like, they didn't spend hours and hours recording. They went through and were like, hey, what do you want here? We want a really raw sound, and we're just going to take the first take of pretty much all these songs and went through them. But like, he's in 2004, he estimated he had worked on or engineered the recording of 1,500 albums. By 2018, his estimated increase is several thousand. And one of the things that separated Albini from other folks in particular was he did not believe in taking percentages off of the gross for anybody. You paid him a flat fee and he was done.
Mm-hmm.
He thought it was immoral to take percentages off of the whatever people's sales were. And which probably, plus he happened to be maybe the greatest A&R man around for most of his life, from say 1986 on, particularly here in Chicago. But yeah, just a huge, like all of every station here in Chicago today did tributes to Steve Albini. Just playing like on what's my station for 1011, the Q101 has the alternative they have the history of alternative, which is a great show on Sunday mornings. But they have alternative daily where they'll play 2 alternative rock songs at 6:00. They played like 5 of his songs in a row, including 2 from Nirvana, from the In Utero album. They did a PJ Harvey song. They did Urge Overkill right before that. Yeah, it was, I don't think, again, not somebody who we all necessarily think of right in front, but like everybody knows Steve Albini. And just an incredible audio engineer. Mm-hmm. And one of the greatest ever. So I
think it's a good way to close off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for us next week, I'm gonna hopefully have better lighting. I was told I had to go in the corner so that way when my wife got here, she could just go right to the kitchen where I usually do all this stuff. So
nobody puts anti-baby in the corner.
I do what I'm told. I'll make this work. Actually, apparently this building's got like an AV room, so I don't know. That might be sort of interesting to check out, but we will see. Of course, I live also in a city where they have a wall of gum.
A wall of gum?
Yeah, the gum wall. You put your used gum on the wall.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't sound like the most hygienic thing I've ever seen, but whatever. So be it. With that, with visions of gumballs used dancing in your head, let's close this off. Next week, Evan and I are going to tell you who we both personally voted for, which will be 2 of potentially 21, 25 votes coming in from a pretty solid group of people. Actually, when I sent you the list of all the people that I came up with, I sort of like had your name first as running every, or no, I had my name, dumbass. You
had your name first and it said dumbass, and it said my name second, said responsible for above dumbass. It said, and I'm not the one who wrote it. I'm just reporting accurately what it said.
There you go. There you go. I got no problem sort of saying that, but we were going to talk about that next week. I'm sure there's going to be probably some more things going on with the elevator. Not sure, because no one's probably going to be eliminated in basketball and hockey, but you can really make your Hall of Fame case, and you can lose it super, super quick in the next 6 weeks.
Here's my question for you just before you go.
Sure.
Vancouver and Edmonton are playing to be the last Canadian team standing. Whoever wins that series, do they win the Stanley Cup?
Colorado is so good right now. I mean, there's every team that's left, I can make a really strong case for. I really can. Even Boston got shellacked tonight. There's still so much there.
But they shellacked Florida 2 nights ago.
They did. I don't know if you see Pasternak got leveled.
Yeah, to Chuck, I hope next he's going to go after Pavel Zacha. Like, he's going for the real fighters on the Bruins. So I hear the equipment guy likes to fight. Maybe you should take him on next.
Sometimes that's how you win. It's all's fair in love and hockey.
True.
Yeah.
True. Well,
No,
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I really don't even have a prediction at this point. It feels like every time I'm watching a game, it's like, oh my God, I think this team can take it. You
Mhm.
just feel like playoff, there's nothing better than playoff hockey. There really isn't. It's just such a different level than anything else.
Yeah, agreed. I'll have to say playoff basketball is a completely different level than the regular season so far this year too. And we are now a total of 2, 3, 5, 8, 10 wins away from 2 Boston New York series in both sports, which they would pay a lot of money for ahead of time. So
There you go. All right. And with that, wherever you are, wherever you may be, make it a fantastic day because it never comes again. Take care, everyone.
take care, guys.